Welcome to the Sparkroom webinar series. Sparkroom provides full-service, data-driven marketing and technology solutions to ignite your performance marketing. Our webinars provide actionable advice and insight to help you better strategize, execute, analyze, and optimize your marketing campaign efforts.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Berg, and I'm the social media strategist here at Sparkroom, the leading provider of higher education marketing management and strategy. For anyone unfamiliar with Sparkroom, we provide fully transparent analytics-based strategies that are designed to capture or to achieve higher education enrollment marketing objectives. Since 2010, our Sparkroom marketing software has been capturing and processing just about 1 million student prospect inquiries each month, making it one of the most comprehensive student inquiry databases on the market today. We combine our deep database and on-the-ground marketing expertise, like what you're about to hear today, to provide insights to our clients, helping them to better adapt their own approaches and take advantage of changes in the industry landscape. I want to welcome everyone here to today's webinar, 2014 Higher Education Inquiry Generation Review, where we'll be surveying, higher education inquiry generation from 2014, really. If you'll humor me for a moment, I'd like to present today's fabulous presenter, Sparkroom Director of Marketing Analytics, Liz Dye, Liz Dye. In her role at Sparkroom, Liz has employed her razor-sharp wit and keen analytical skills to work with some of the top brands in higher education and develop successful enrollment marketing strategies by employing performance analysis and database decisions to optimize campaigns. Little known fact about Liz is that she did grow up on a farm, but she did not raise box turtles, unfortunately. Before she gets started, let me just bring up a couple of housekeeping notes for everyone on today's webinar. First, I'd like to point out some functionality on your webinar control panel. The webinar control panel is located in the top right corner of your screen. If you can't see it, look for a little orange box with an arrow. If you click on the arrow, the box will expand. If you have any questions during the session, please type your questions into the question box, and our wonderful presenter will answer them at the end of today's presentation. Second, I'd just like to assure everyone that following the presentation today, we will be making both a recording of this webinar as well as a copy of the presentation itself available to all of you who are participating. Again, thank you for joining us today. Now, if you'd like to make sure that your seat backs and tray tables are in their full upright position, I'll pass things on over to Liz so we can get this flight underway.
All right, well, thank you, Jeff, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you as well for joining us for today's 2014 Year in Review Sneak Peek. We're actually polishing up the final written report now and should have that ready to share with everyone in the next few days, so don't worry, you didn't miss anything yet. As soon as it's ready to go, we'll be emailing everyone joining us with a copy of the full report. In the meantime, as Jeff mentioned, we'll be sure to share this deck with you after today's call. So first off, I hope that everyone's New Year's hangovers have worn off and your 2015 is off to a strong start. For us here at Sparkroom, things have been pretty busy. A lot happened in the higher education space in 2014. It's kept things interesting for us and for our school partners. A good deal of it stemmed from a growing conversation about higher education costs and value for students, especially as student loan debts continue to grow. While the for-profit sector has had its fair share of institutions in the headlines, so have schools from the private, not-for-profit, and public realms. Gainful employment remained a leading topic among for-profit schools last year, with more clarity around what this will look like expected in 2015. Also on the political docket this year are potential changes to community college access for all college-bound individuals. Additionally, there was movement last year away from traditional liberal arts studies towards more career-focused programs in all sectors, as well as growth for many schools' distance education programs, whether hybrid or fully online. Our other area of expertise, interactive marketing, has been just as dynamic in 2014. The media landscape continues to evolve as new wired devices make consumers more connected than ever, and new ad formats have offered schools even more ways to connect with prospects. Other topics shaking up the ways we approach student enrollment marketing included more emphasis on holistic, cross-channel marketing plans, major changes to media powerhouses like Facebook and Google, rise in compliance concerns prompted by new regulations and matched by new ways fraudsters have of getting around them, and big data continuing to change what we know about prospective students and how marketing efficiency can be improved as a result of better targeting. So today, we'll talk about how these impacted what we saw in enrollment marketing based on our data from 2014. Using Sparkroom's more than 56 million inquiries, as well as some outside data sources and front-end campaign insights from our marketing services team, we'll tackle the topics listed here. The final year in review white paper will fill in more of the hard numbers around specific cross-sections of the data, so I'll use our time today to talk about what we found particularly interesting and try to get at some of the factors driving these trends. Then, using all of this, we'll take a look at our tea leaves and try to predict what's in store for higher education marketers in the rest of 2015. To get started, one of the biggest stories from 2014 was the decline in inquiry volume. Starting at the end of 2013, inquiry volume started falling off compared to the year prior, instead of the consistent quarter-over-quarter inquiry growth we'd previously seen. When we looked back at 2013 this time last year, there was speculation around whether or not it was a temporary bump or a more permanent right-sizing by the market, and the answer turned out to be the latter. Overall, inquiries were down 21.77% compared to 2013. There were variations in the year-over-year volume change as the year went on. The first half of 2014 was closer to 15% under last year's inquiry totals. However, Q3 had a much more significant rate of decline, ending up about 25% behind last year's totals. Q4 was right in line with the 2014 average rate of change at 21% below Q4 2013 inquiries. One interesting note within the monthly totals is December 2014's pretty flat performance compared to November. Seasonally, this is by far the slowest month for inquiry volume from all channels, and especially first-party or branded inquiries. But this year, December volume was only about 2.5% behind the prior month's totals, which is somewhat unusual considering the average December to November drop is closer to 10 to 12%. So definitely less of a drop-off than we would have expected based on the prior year's seasonal averages. It's hard to say at this point if that's a sign of volume starting to slowly level off or not, but we'll definitely be watching as 2015 goes on. Let's put these numbers in context of the larger post-secondary enrollment trends as reported by the National Center for Education Statistics. Even though inquiry volume just began to fall short in the past 18 months, the larger student enrollment figures have been leveling off since 2011. 4-year and 2-year institution total enrollments are shown here, and both show some slight backward progress in recent years after hitting all-time peaks in 2010. In fact, 2013 had the largest year-over-year decline since 2000, falling nearly 1.5% behind 2012 enrollment levels. The decline in inquiry volume over the past year and a half, plus this 3-year stagnant enrollment trend, is a reflection of how higher education as a whole has cooled off in the past couple of years. It was much easier for schools to grow in the past by adding new students from what was a growing segment of the population overall. But now that student enrollments at all levels and for all institutions have stagnated, and schools are getting fewer inquiries into their funnels to begin with, it means that schools need to adapt expectations to a much more competitive market. Here's a look at inquiries for online and campus-based programs from 2013 to 2014. Online programs in particular were a big story for us throughout 2013 and 2014 due to the continual slide in inquiries. They had a much rougher 2014 in terms of volume, ending up nearly 25% behind last year's totals. But as the year went on, the trend line leveled off for these programs. In December, inquiries actually inched up about 1.5% from the prior month. While reliable national distance education stats are just now starting to be published by sources like iPads, we do know that for-profit schools make up nearly 1/3 of all online enrollments. And knowing that many major for-profit players had a rough year in 2014 might help account for some of the drop-off in online inquiries. However, with more schools from more sectors offering distance ed courses all the time, the fact that the inquiry levels are starting to stabilize and even tick up a bit indicates that these programs may be ready to turn a corner in 2015. Campus-based programs have had a slightly different path in 2014. There was strong inquiry growth in these programs through mid-2013 before they took a sharp downward turn in Q4. Overall, campus-based programs had a year-over-year volume decline slightly lower than average, right around 19.5%. And while the latter half of the year did come closer to that average rate of decline, these programs in general have fared better than their online counterparts. Many more of the growing program subjects in the healthcare and skilled trades categories were offered at campus-based institutions, so the share of student inquiries remained a bit more consistent with 2013 totals as a result. There was some good news for higher education marketers in 2014, particularly around inquiry conversion rates. And just to make sure we're on the same page definition-wise, in this case, conversions refers to an inquiry to application conversion. As you can see from the numbers listed here, we've seen some really positive performance trends in recent quarters. We know from the past few data views that inquiries are down and the overall student population is stagnant. But for those who are inquiring, there's been a much stronger application rate, likely due to more pared down, quality-focused marketing plans, amongst other positive school operational changes. In 2014, every quarter's conversion rates were above the corresponding quarter's performance in 2013. Considering that the Q4 2014 lead cohort wasn't fully mature when we pulled these numbers, this trend seems to be setting schools up for some strong student starts as we get going in 2015. So let's take a look at an interesting twist to the conversion rates. They're up overall and up pretty substantially from last year, as we just saw. But when we unbundle first-party or branded versus third-party or affiliate performance numbers, they're not individually that much stronger than they were last year. First-party is up slightly on the whole, but had a pretty slow start to 2014. And third-party performance is actually down slightly from 2013. You're probably wondering if my math skills are a little off, but I can assure you that they're not. Instead, what the overall conversion rate lift is more tied to is what I mentioned earlier, a more quality-focused media plan. As you can see on the last slide, first-party inquiries outperform third-party inquiries by a pretty large margin. In some channels, first-party inquiries convert at 2 to 3 times the rate of third-party sources. And school marketers have responded by shifting the ratio of their media plans from predominantly third-party to a much more balanced mix. By Q4 last year, only 57% of inquiries were coming from third parties as a result. We'll talk a little bit about what first-party sources are having the strongest influence here a little later on. But for now, let's take a look at the programs that really came to the forefront in 2014, particularly those in the healthcare field. Here's a share of inquiries by program category for the top 5 in both 2013 and 2014. As you can see, health professions made up enough ground in share of 2014 volume to actually overtake the business, management, marketing, and related support services category for the first time that we've seen since 2010. The other categories rounding out the top 5 have remained consistent from 2013 to 2014, at least in terms of what made the list. But similar to business, we saw a pretty big drop in share of volume for the Homeland Security, law enforcement, firefighting, and related protective services category, which is largely supported by criminal justice programs. There was also a drop of about a percentage point share for the computer and information sciences group, which is consistent with trends we saw moving into 2013 as well. This category is still a strong performer overall, but it's become a bit more fragmented as other tech-related categories have begun to gain some ground and steal share here. We looked at Google's Q4 2014 search query share by program category to see how early funnel interest stacked up against our inquiry trends. And healthcare is dominant here as well. The general category accounts for nearly 1/3 of all program-specific queries, and if you factor in nursing, that number jumps to almost 50%. Not only that, but both grew substantially year over year, so it seems that enrollments in these program categories will remain strong for the foreseeable future. As usual, these trends reflect larger economic factors, specifically employment forecasts for healthcare-related jobs. Looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics employment forecasts through 2022, and healthcare and social assistance shows not just the largest amount of growth between 2002 and 2012, but also one of the largest projected growth rates for the next decade as well. By 2022, it's anticipated that healthcare and social assistance professions will be the single largest services providing employment category. surpassing professional and business services, the current private sector champ. That's not surprising given the surge in insured Americans that resulted from the Affordable Care Act. Couple the needs of an increasingly insured population with the anticipated increase in elder Americans over upcoming decades, and the result is a strong forecast for employment in all aspects of healthcare. This strong outlook is attractive for students and is definitely a leading reason these programs are gaining such momentum. And they're equally attractive for schools who are looking to provide education focused in areas with strong employment opportunities in order to stay ahead of pending gainful employment requirements. The only other category that comes close to healthcare's strong projected growth is construction. Unsurprisingly, we see subjects here positioned for some strong growth in several categories as well in 2015. The mechanic and repair technologies category, made up of program subjects like HVAC, automotive and aircraft tech, and electrical equipment tech, was actually the 6th largest last year, just missing our top 5 lists. Precision production categorically grew as well, with strong year-over-year growth in machine tool technology and welding subjects. So while they were still making up some ground last year, I expect we'll see a lot more in this area in 2015. Welding particularly has become a pretty strong focus for many schools recently. It's a great example of what we see driving the growth in skilled trade areas, an increasing number of high-tech, sophisticated manufacturing jobs that are readily available for those who have the right skill set to fill them. So healthcare did well, but it's a big category. Let's focus on which programs within it have the strongest inquiry growth in 2014. Now that we're starting to get a handle on what sort of needs are created by the growth in insured individuals, there's more clarity around what training will be needed to fill these specific system gaps. Nursing especially had a great year at all levels. Upper-level nursing administration programs more than doubled in volume. More traditional nursing outcomes, RN, ASN, BSN, also had positive volume gains last year. Registered nurses are projected by the BLS to have the 2nd largest job growth through 2022, and higher-level nurse practitioners and nursing instructors are also listed as being some of the fastest-growing occupations in the next few years. Holistic and alternative health programs are still relatively low portions of overall inquiry volume, but they're growing quickly. And I think this category really helps to highlight how broad-reaching the increased healthcare employment opportunities are. The programs are less traditional specialties, but are also growing for students and healthcare consumers. Clinical support specialties are popular in a number of different areas. 3 of the fastest growing ones for us in 2014 are listed here. The second 2, diagnostic medical sonography and dental hygiene, are each projected to grow by between 30 and 45% in the next 10 years. And finally, mental health and counseling are some of the strongest grad level programs we see in any category. Mental health and marriage and family therapy counseling are really driving a lot of growth at the master's and doctorate degree level and seem to be doing especially well in the online format. So we looked a little bit at what grew in 2014, but now let's look at what didn't have such a great year, namely associate's and bachelor's degree programs. These 2 degree levels still accounted for 46% of all inquiries we received last year, but that's down from well over 50% in 2013. And a lot of the inquiry volume decline we saw was for these 2 degree levels specifically. Both had volume drops greater than the 2014 average. Program-wise, these 2 degree levels seem to be losing the most ground in 3 main areas: business, which we saw decline across the board in 2014, criminal justice, and legal professions and studies, which at this level has primarily translated to a loss of paralegal program inquiries. The share of inquiries has transitioned to degrees at a lower level and those at a higher level. At the lower end of the degree award spectrum, certificates and diplomas both gained over 2 percentage points in total volume share. A lot of their growth is due to strong program subject growth in the skilled trade areas, mechanic and repair technology programs, as well as precision production. And interestingly, these lower degree levels seem to be picking up some of the slack left in the criminal justice and paralegal subject areas by associate's and bachelor's degrees, indicating that possibly students are looking for these professions still, but maybe in a slightly shorter degree format. At the higher end, master's degrees have also gained a little over 2 percentage points of total inquiry volume share. Doctorate degrees have slightly less growth, but still posted positive gains in 2014. We're seeing some variety in the program categories that these degree levels seem to be strongest for. Healthcare, unsurprisingly, was a strong growth area for both grad level degrees listed here, but categories that didn't have a lot of overall traction across degree levels, such as architecture, psychology, and social sciences, were also strong at the grad level in 2014. One of the areas where we've seen graduate level programs really start to take over is for online programs. Here's a look at volume share by degree level category for online institutions specifically. Grad degrees have been pretty steadily increasing their portion of the overall inquiry pool, and this jumped very quickly at the end of 2014. In Q4, graduate degrees made up 36.5% of all online inquiries. Not surprisingly, the flexible online program format is an attractive one for working professionals looking to be more competitive in the workplace. This is also an area where we see schools in the most diverse range of sectors competing. More and more, public and not-for-profit private schools have been offering hybrid or fully online graduate courses, which makes this increasingly crowded in 2015 as distance education continues to evolve. So let's shift gears a bit now and talk about some of the marketing dynamics that shaped our student enrollment campaigns in 2014. The lead story for us has really been the diversified media mixes that schools are gradually adopting. When I started working on schools' media buys in 2006, third-party or affiliate channels were contributing upwards of 80% of inquiries for the average school. Websites relied on organic search rankings to attract visitors without most of the other traffic driving strategies readily available today. And even more significantly, the only interactive media access came from physical computers, which tend to stay pretty still. This has obviously changed quite a bit since then, and the way enrollment marketers are approaching student recruitment has begun to change to reflect that. We looked earlier at the overall shift from third-party heavy media plans to more first-party centric or balanced mixes. But you can see here that even as late as Q4 2013, schools were still relying on affiliate inquiries to make up nearly 70% of their inbound prospect funnel. In 2014, that focus gradually shifted, and the change most impacted affiliate data leads. Hot transfers are down slightly as well, but only by about 0.3 of a percentage point. And what's taking the place of third-party inquiries aren't coming from any one source alone, but rather a collection of channels that work together to boost brand-specific inquiries generated mostly or captured mostly via school websites. Cross-channel marketing efforts are becoming a key part of marketers' 2015 strategies in every vertical, and education is no exception. Schools' internal website inquiries were the fastest growing category in 2014 and now account for over 20% of all inquiries. With that said, we know now via view-through conversion and user-based pixel tracking that many other media channels such as display and social media are contributing to the increase in website leads by increasing brand awareness. So although school websites are definitely picking up the last click traffic credit, it's safe to say that efforts in all first-party channels are contributing to this strong gain. Paid search also had a great year in 2014, adding about 4 percentage points volume share. Schools are spending more overall in search to help generate both brand awareness and traffic via search engine visibility. Specifically, there's been a boost in bidding on general keywords, which are far more competitive than brand terms. We'll look at some of the cost dynamics behind paid search in 2014 shortly. One other thing we noticed in 2014 is social media increasing in effectiveness as an inquiry generation channel. Even though it's still relatively low volume for most schools, social media tripled its share of inquiries last year. Additionally, we've seen attribution data that shows social media in a strong assisting role that helps boost leads via other channels, particularly school websites. As social networks such as Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn continue to improve the ad formats and effectiveness in 2015 and beyond, we definitely anticipate this to be an even more important piece of the cross-channel plan. Inquiry costs increased in two of the biggest paid channels during 2014, paid search and paid per inquiry affiliates. Let's start with paid search, since as we just discussed, it's become a leading channel for school marketers. Overall, we saw our clients' cost per click increase in 2014 after remaining fairly stable the year prior. Brand CPCs stayed relatively flat for the first half of the year, and since those accounted for 65% of total clicks, they helped to keep costs stable during those months. But these increased pretty quickly in the latter half of the year, with Q4 CPCs up 58% from the same time period last year. General keyword costs increased throughout 2014, up year over year in each quarter. By the end of the year, CPCs were between $2.50 and $3 above where they were in 2013. But even though CPCs were up last year, and particularly towards the latter half of the year, there was some good news for search marketers in the form of click-to-inquiry conversion rates. In 2013, the average click conversion rate we saw across brand and general terms was 4.6%. That rate increased nicely in 2014, up to 5.8% on average. So while CPCs were up, so were click conversion rates. And as a result of the dynamics on both sides of the equation, cost per inquiry were lower in the first half of the year thanks to those flat brand term CPCs and improved average conversion rates. But then as brand CPCs started to increase in Q3 and Q4, along with a more substantial bump in general keyword CPCs, inquiry costs went up as well. Q3 2014 ended up about 14.5% above Q3 2013, and the year-over-year increase grew to 32.5% by Q4. For those of you looking for more search-specific cost and performance data, I definitely encourage you to download our 2014 paid search benchmarking report, which is available now at sparkroom.com/resources. But for now, we'll keep moving on into the affiliate inquiry costs in 2014, which were also on the rise. Much like the trend we saw with CPCs, third-party CPIs were pretty flat through 2013. That changed in 2014, and again, like paid search trends, was particularly noticeable in Q3 and Q4. CPIs increased on average about 10% for campus-based schools and between 20 and 30% for online schools. I snuck Q1 2015 on here as well, so we can compare to see if the higher price points seem to be sticking. Although they're down somewhat from Q4, they're still well above last year's Q1 totals, so the answer seems to be yes. I separated out online and campus-based campaigns in order to highlight one other CPI trend that some of you may have already noticed. Historically, campus-based affiliate CPIs were higher than online costs. There's typically less specific targeting needed for online campaigns, particularly on the geo front, which means that front-end marketing costs are lower and translate into lower inquiry costs. But that's changed in 2014, and now online CPIs are averaging well above campus-based costs. One of the big factors in the online increase has to do with a higher ratio of graduate program inquiries, which are typically more expensive. But also contributing to the increase of online and campus-based CPIs is that stronger focus on quality we've seen enrollment marketers take in 2014. That's translated into less spend with lower quality affiliates that typically have lower CPIs, thus raising the overall average across the board. Our last 2014 review topic is a look at how mobile devices have been shaking up student inquiry generation. According to Forrester Research, by the end of 2013, half of U.S. online adults were always addressable, meaning that they had at least 3 internet-capable devices and were accessing the web multiple times a day from multiple physical locations. We're definitely seeing the impact on all aspects of the student enrollment funnel, and we'll start by looking at share of website visits by device across our clients, according to Google Analytics. In 2012, nearly 90% of all visits came from non-mobile devices. That percentage dropped to just 85% in 2013 and fell again to 75% in 2014. We're clearly starting to see more consumers accessing information and researching education options on the go than ever before. Now let's take a look at how consumers search for more information and on which devices in 2014. On the left is a look at the monthly share of Google search impressions by device in 2014. Non-mobile devices start off the year with nearly 70% share of all impressions, but by Q4, that percentage has dropped pretty drastically. The year closed out with mobile nearly equal with non-mobile in share of impressions. What's interesting to note is how this compares to the chart on the right, which highlights the share of leads by device for the same time period. Mobile is definitely starting to make up ground and increasing in share month over month from mid-2014 on, but it's not nearly as even with non-mobile devices as it is in share of impressions. What this indicates is that mobile search is still in a lot of ways one of those assisting marketing channels, meaning that a lot of search impressions get served on mobile devices, but those same prospects may be coming back to submit their inquiry on the more familiar desktop or laptop devices. But there's still been a strong increase in mobile inquiries, despite lagging a bit behind their share of ad impressions. In our database, the number of inquiries attributed to mobile sources increased 82% in 2014 compared to 2012. What all these numbers make clear is that a mobile optimized plan in every channel is no longer an option for marketers moving into 2015. There's been a huge jump in activity from initial search queries all the way through inquiry submission via every marketing channel. And having media ready and responsive for access from any device is critical in remaining competitive. And that takes us to our final section, where we'll try to use what we've learned about 2014 to predict what's going to happen in 2015. First and foremost, there will almost definitely be a continued focus on healthcare as well as skilled trade programs. The employment numbers we looked at in these fields point to a pretty compelling future for both areas through at least the next decade. We get requests nearly weekly from schools looking to understand what new programs are growing the fastest, and subjects falling into both of these almost always make the list. For schools looking to provide a career-focused education that helps students take advantage of current economic headwinds, healthcare and skilled trades will continue to be growth areas in 2015 and beyond. Next, it seems like associate's and bachelor's degrees will continue to lose share to the lower and upper level degrees. Many of the available healthcare positions can be filled with employees holding degrees at either lower or higher levels, and skilled trades are typically taught via certificate or diploma courses. Getting the skills needed with minimal time and monetary investment is important for today's value-focused student. And associate's and bachelor's degrees have proven somewhat less adept at meeting those criteria recently. Understanding new and possibly non-traditional ways to package education will be a focus for schools looking to provide the most attractive options for prospective students, no matter what the subject of interest is. School marketing mixes have gotten much more diverse in 2014, and everything we've seen and heard indicates that this will continue. According to Marin's 2015 Digital Marketer Census, half of all marketers are making cross-channel marketing a priority in 2015, and finding the right balance of channels on all devices is key in making this strategy successful. Schools have historically been slow to move away from those affiliate-focused media plans, but based on the strong conversion rate incentive to doing so, many more schools will be heading in this direction next year. Next, it's clear that non-desktop formats are here to stay. Every stat available about mobile device penetration in virtually every segment and every geography indicates that this is something that's only going to become more prevalent. So marketers who missed the mobile memo in 2014 will be playing catch-up in 2015 to truly focus on creating a prospective customer experience that's always addressable, just like their audiences. And finally, something we didn't really get into in too much detail just now, but a key part of our own 2015 roadmap involves marketers finding ways to get to know their audiences better. Marin's Digital Marketer Census highlighted that 51% of marketers feel that the key to driving better engagement this year involves getting a deeper understanding of their audiences. So learning key attributes such as demographics, psychographics, and online activities before deciding whether or not to target a specific user profile. There's so much data available on individual prospects now that knowing where to look and what to look for can help save time and money, as well as customize an enrollment process that meets individual needs and expectations. And that does it for our 2014 recap, and now it's time to tackle 2015. But first, I'll open it up for any questions we got during the presentation.
Great, thanks, Liz. So as she mentioned, now is the time when we take questions. Again, if you have any questions, please type them into the question box on your webinar control panel. If you cannot see the control panel, look for the orange box with the arrow, open the box on the control panel, or click on that arrow, the box will expand, and you can type your questions in there. It looks like we've got a couple questions already. Just kind of going back to the numbers you were discussing at the beginning of the presentation. When looking at decline in inquiries, did you look only at PPL, or did that include all sources and all types?
That includes all sources and all types. And I think that we saw that the decline in third-party or PPL volume was definitely more significant, but overall we saw website, paid search, and other channel inquiries declining as well.
Do you have any sense of why business programs are decreasing in demand?
You know, I think that it goes to schools really focusing on very specific outcomes with their degree programs. Business is very broad. It's very applicable, which is great, but it doesn't really speak to specific outcomes. And I think that a lot of, especially career-focused educators, are looking for degrees with very tangible end outcomes, and business just isn't one. A lot of the decline we've seen comes at the associate's and bachelor's level, which do tend to be the longer, more expensive degrees. And so as a result, you know, I think they've just kind of suffered from other programs really taking the share volume there.
If I could make one change to set myself up for success in 2015, what do you think that should be?
Well, from a marketing perspective, I think it really involves understanding how all of the channels work together, not just putting them in silos to see and measure how your display campaign generates leads versus your affiliate versus your search campaigns, but really looking at overall how does your media plan work together to create more student enrollments. So I'd say that's number one. It really makes sure that you're getting in different media channels where people are paying attention in maybe different ways that you hadn't considered. So I'd say that's number one. And I'd say from an educator, so a school's maybe curriculum-focused perspective, I really say just focusing on getting training into shorter degree formats, particularly those for skilled trades or healthcare, to make sure that people are in and out with a degree in as short amount of time as possible.
Great. All right. How do you see the growth in alliance-type business for online universities to partner more with business to become preferred vendors and offer discounts?
I'll answer that question to how I think I'm understanding it, but if I'm misunderstanding, definitely type in some clarification on that. We haven't really done a whole lot of tracking of specific schools, alliances, or I guess partnerships with different employers just yet. I do understand it's a growing trend, not even so much in business, but especially in a lot of the skilled trades with schools offering very specific programs designed to teach very specific skill sets that would, I guess, give someone the qualifications to hold a job at a specific company. I do know that's a growing trend. We haven't seen it a whole lot yet, at least not in our database, for business-specific educators. So I'd have to hopefully have some more info on that in coming months.
So measuring traditional media is kind of difficult to do. Do you have any suggestions on how to tackle that?
It definitely is very difficult to do. I think what we've noticed in our own database is that we're getting fewer and fewer inquiries directly attributable to traditional media sources, so radio, print, billboards, and TV. I think when we looked at it, and I'm just going to look at my numbers real quickly, I think we had pretty substantial year-over-year inquiry volume decline for offline media. Well, so it kind of stayed the same in terms of share, but it dropped about 20%. What we've been doing and encouraging our clients to do is to look at how other media channels, such as your internal website visits or your paid search queries, are reacting during times of traditional media advertisement. So, for example, we just looked at one client's paid search queries during weeks of TV flights, so when they were advertising heavily on TV, versus weeks when they weren't advertising heavily on TV in a handful of markets. And we saw that search queries actually increased about 30% during weeks of heavy TV advertising. The actual inquiries themselves were still pretty slim because it's just kind of a much lower inquiry generation channel, but we were able to see the impact in other channels. So I would say you kind of have to get creative in how you're looking at it and knowing that people are maybe getting that brand awareness in traditional avenues, but maybe searching or submitting inquiries in other channels. You kind of have to look at how those correlate, even if it's not an easy one-to-one conclusion to make.
What are some of the key changes on internal website inquiries between 2013 and 2014?
I think, well, they've gone up quite a bit. I think that's the biggest change. I think that we're getting more view-through conversions, people seeing display ads, for example, or being exposed to Facebook ads, or searching on general keywords, seeing ads for a specific school, maybe not clicking through at that time, or maybe not directly going to the website, but coming back later and visiting the website. So really kind of seeing a runoff of other channels impacting overall website visits, which has been probably the biggest change. In the past, when we looked at websites traffic, it was really all tied back to their organic page rankings. So people would search them, get to their first or second page listing, and go through the website from there. But now there's so many more ways for folks to find out about a website and come through later, that you're seeing that impact as the website kind of being the funnel for all those to get through to the school.
So this is kind of a broad question, and I realize everybody is going to have opinions on what works or doesn't, but is there a reputable media attribution software out there? Basically something that measures CPP or CPM as it relates to search activity.
Are there reputable ones? Absolutely. I think everybody kind of uses their own set of software based on their budget, the size of their operation, and what specifically they're trying to track. So, you know, we're happy to kind of talk offline about some recommendations based on individual situations. But I mean, I know I personally, and probably a lot of the people listening right now, get dozens of emails every day from companies who claim to be reputable, and some are definitely better than others, but I think the best one for each individual marketer is really very dependent on their situation and what they're trying to do and how much money they have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of like maybe 3 just off the top of my head that I really like.
Right.
But, you know, it depends on what.
And they all measure something different, and everyone has their own strengths. And, you know, I look at things from a very data focused view. Maybe other people are more interested in creative performance or, you know, kind of different metrics. And so I think, you know, that really kind of defines what would be most effective for a specific marketer.
And what channels you're working with.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
What are some of the trends in increasing the quality of aggregator leads?
So some of the trends that we're seeing, just kind of off the top of my head, is schools buy more hot transfer inquiries than data inquiries than they have in the past. You know, schools are really starting to wind down, or not wind down, but definitely decrease their investment in data leads specifically. But we're seeing hot transfers stay pretty stable. Certainly, they're much more efficient. I think that they convert usually about, you know, 1 to 1.5 times the rate of actual data inquiries. So certainly, that's a good way to do it. Folks, yes.
Could you just define what a hot transfer is for everybody?
Yes, great suggestion. So a hot transfer would be if somebody either calls an 800 number for more information about schools in general, or is on the phone with a marketer about a completely different subject, asks for more information about a school, and then instead of that, I guess, advisor submitting their information as a data inquiry to the school for the school to then place an outbound call to at a later time, the person's directly call transferred over to that school so they can speak to somebody right there. So it's somebody who's ready to talk right at that moment, you know, definitely available, definitely interested. So that's been something that more and more aggregators are offering. Technology is better at tracking them for sure than it was 3 or 4 years ago. So we're able to look at performance there. Costs have gone up a little bit as a result, but we're still seeing much better performance. So that's one. Really forcing transparency with aggregators has helped as well. So to know specifically what sites inquiries are coming from, how they're being generated has definitely helped to weed out a lot of the more unsavory activity. A big focus on compliance has helped to clean that sort of nonsense up as well, and then just, you know, really kind of forming a strategic partnership with aggregators, so giving them feedback. You know, I was speaking with some people out at LeadsCon last week, and a number of aggregators and people there were saying that they're getting more and more performance feedback from schools than ever before. And, you know, that's definitely encouraging to hear. We've been doing it for years, and I think that's the only way to really hold somebody accountable for their performance is to tell them what's working and then have them do more of that. So, you know, I think all of those combined just really add up to a picture of a much stronger partnership that's more open to you know, kind of working hand in hand with these aggregators to get the best quality inquiries.
All right, great. We have one last question, which I'll ask in, what are you seeing the average cost for a warm transfer for an undergraduate lead?
For an undergraduate lead specifically, and I believe these are detailed in a little bit more specifics in our actual paper review. So whenever that comes out, there'll be some better numbers around that. But for Q3 and Q4, we saw the average cost per transfer about $95. And now that's an aggregate number. I don't have undergraduate in front of me, but I do know that hot transfers or warm transfers are predominantly undergraduate inquiries. There's not a whole lot of graduate inquiries coming from those channels right now. It's just kind of the nature of the medium. So I'd say probably we'd be looking at between 90 and 95.
Great. Okay, so that is the last question we have in the queue right now. If you have any more questions, submit them real quick, or feel free to shoot them on over to any of our email addresses, and we will get back to you as quickly as possible with answers. As always, oops, hold on a second. For more information on Sparkroom's products or services, you can always go to www.sparkroom.com. And if you missed any of the URLs or you'd like another look at the presentation, we will be sending you an email within the next few days that contains a link to this deck, as well as a link to the recording of the webinar itself. We'll also be posting this information out at our blog, which is located at www.sparkroom.com/blog. Very inventive URL for that. Thank you again for joining us today. It was wonderful to have you here, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank you for your time. For more performance marketing resources, including our series of on-demand webinars, go to sparkroom.com/resources.